Is it true that he married a 9-year-old named Aisha? So that would be pedophile.
Great.
The man accused of assassinating conservative firebrand Charlie Kirk has been identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson.
Charlie Kirk's killer. He's not Muslim, and he is a white, Christian, conservative, Republican male with a gun.
I want you to address one thing. Internet rumors that somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder, and I want you to make a statement.
This is a worldwide problem. The people on the, on the extremes, the Islamists, the radical Islamists, and the...
Charlie acknowledging to me that he knew nothing about Islam. He then started mentioning something about the Quran. What does the Quran teach about this or that?
Charlie Kirk awalnya mendirikan Turning Point USA pada usia 18 tahun, tepatnya tahun 2012, sebagai organisasi pelajar kanan radikal. Beruntungnya, di tahun yang sama di panggung Konvensi Nasional Partai Republik, Kirk sukses meraih dukungan finansial besar dari Foster Friess, seorang miliuner Kristen radikal sayap kanan yang memiliki sejarah panjang dalam mendanai organisasi-organisasi Islamofobia. Dukungan itu bukan hanya modal uang, tapi juga izin untuk mengorbit di dunia politik. Maka tak heran, sepanjang karirnya, Charlie Kirk sering menjadikan Islam sebagai sasaran tembak, seolah itu tiket untuk menjaga restu para donaturnya.
How many people did he kill?
Lots.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Is it true that he married a 9-year-old named Aisha?
No, he actually married a 6-year-old.
Oh, I'm
Aisha.
sorry. Okay.
And
so 6-year-old.
Yes.
So we got to make sure we're very clear here. There's no misinformation. So that would be pedophile.
Yeah.
Selain kerap menyerang Islam, Charlie Kirk dikenal sebagai seorang Kristen Protestan yang berpegang pada Scofield Bible. Kitab tafsir ini menanamkan doktrin dispensasionalisme, keyakinan bahwa sejarah dunia berjalan dalam era-era yang ditentukan Tuhan, dengan Israel sebagai pusat nubuatan akhir zaman. Dari sinilah lahir keyakinan bahwa orang Kristen wajib mendukung Israel tanpa syarat. Kirk, sebagai pengusung garis konservatif, menjadikan doktrin ini sebagai fondasi retorikanya, menyerang Islam di satu sisi, dan membela Israel mati-matian di sisi lain.
Why are there so many dead kids? Why are you okay with dead babies?
Good question. Why are there dead kids? Because Hamas has no care. Time out.
Israel.
So you think Israel? Let me get this straight. Let's think how irrational it is. Israel sits around.
Are you okay with dead babies?
Hold on. I want to make sure this is okay.
No, I need.
Of course, I'm not okay with dead kids. Okay, ridiculous. I'm the most pro-life person. I've debated for 2 hours. Time out. Stop interrupting me. Do you think Israel? Do you think Israel sits around and they say, how do we kill more kids in Gaza today?
I mean, so why are they killing kids then?
Exactly. Let's think. Maybe it's because Hamas uses the kids as human shields on top of their military bases. Maybe that's why.
Selama hampir 11 tahun, Charlie Kirk dikenal sebagai sosok yang tak henti menyerang Islam. Tapi pada Juli 2023, sesuatu yang tak banyak orang tahu terjadi. Eddie, seorang Muslim Amerika sekaligus pendiri The Dean Show, mulai berdialog dengannya secara tertutup lewat sambungan pribadi. Dalam percakapan itu, Eddie pelan-pelan menyampaikan dakwah tentang Islam, bukan dengan debat panas, tapi dengan penjelasan yang jernih. Hingga akhirnya, Charlie yang selama ini keras menolak, justru mulai bertanya tentang isi Al-Quran.
I was introduced to Charlie by a mutual friend who knew him very well. Back on July 17, 2023, we hoped we could meet in person to have a constructive discussion about Islam. The goal was simple: dialogue, understanding, and education. Peaceful conversation, not conflict. Now, shortly after that introduction, as the goal was for us to eventually meet in person, Charlie Kirk tweeted something very negative about Islam and Muslims. You can see it here in this tweet. And I immediately reached out to him and also did an academic response with Imam Tom to address the misinformation in his tweet. and just outright lies. Now, Charlie responded to my email, and we exchanged messages respectfully. We even exchanged phone numbers. So behind the scenes, I was talking with him over the email and addressing things that he had mentioned in his tweet. Now, eventually, we had our first phone conversation, lasting around 30 to 45 minutes. I felt it went very well. I opened the conversation by sharing with Charlie a little bit about my life and why I had started the Dean Show. And it was directly to help people like Charlie, Kirk, to understand Islam and Muslims. That's what the Dean Show is all about. Clearing up misconceptions and helping the average person like Charlie to understand what we are all about, purpose of life, why we're here, why we're created. And during the conversation, I shared insights about the Scofield Bible and how its origins have been used to divide Muslims and Christians and to promote an agenda. So we touched upon that, also dispensationalism. Now, the next part of our conversation, this is what really stood out to me. You know, you have long conversation, you can't remember everything, but this was one of the parts that I really remember clearly. And I'll never forget Charlie acknowledging to me that he knew nothing about Islam and that he had been taught to hate Islam, and admitted he was raised in a context where many around him had negative views about Muslims. This was clear. He told me this, and this stood with me. Charlie told me he had many Serbian friends growing up. And sadly, many Serbs are also taught to just hate Muslims, often calling Muslims Turks. And if you ask me, I believe he was also affected by this type of hatred. This is very extreme element. There's this very extreme element there. That's another discussion. Just look at what happened in Bosnia in 1992. So it shows the effects, how you can have people of hate around you, and this can truly affect you. And I truly believe this affected him, his way of thinking, and his hate of Islam and Muslims. So we got to be really careful who we hang with and who our friends are. So I asked Charlie if he had ever had any Muslim friends or knew any Muslims growing up. Charlie told me no, but that he had met a couple Muslims in college who were phenomenal individuals. I'll never forget, he said something along the lines of, "Eddie, I'm not trying to trap or bait you," something like that, but I'm asking because I really don't know. He then started mentioning something about the Quran. What does the Quran teach about this or that? Some of the same verses, some of the same things, as normal things that come up from Islam haters who misquote out of context. You could see he was just kind of digesting this from others, and then he was now sharing what he had, the negative things he had learned. You know, from this you can gauge where a person's understanding actually is. But he truly didn't know anything about Islam. So I explained some common misconceptions about Islam, providing context to verses that are often misrepresented, quoted out of context. And Charlie was very polite, non-combative, and seemed genuinely curious. He asked questions, and I aimed to be the Muslim friend he never had, helping him understand Islam in its true context. We ended our conversation with the intention to meet in person. After that, I really didn't see him posting anything crazy like before about Islam. He agreed to appear on my program, and I made it clear we could continue talking privately, but also extended the invitation just in case he wanted to be a guest on the program. And he agreed.
Janji pertemuan itu tak pernah terjadi, tapi menariknya sesuatu berubah. Entah karena bisikan dakwah Eddie, atau karena Charlie akhirnya mencium bau busuk dari tafsir cacat Scofield Bible yang selama ini ia junjung tinggi. Pelan-pelan keberpihakannya kepada Israel mulai goyah. Hal ini terlihat pada Oktober 2023. Ia terang-terangan menunjukkan keraguannya. Benarkah Israel sekadar membela diri? Atau justru sedang melakukan ethnic cleansing terhadap warga Palestina? Sebuah pertanyaan yang, bagi kalangan Protestan garis keras, sudah cukup dianggap pengkhianatan.
Fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I gotta be careful the way I say this. they're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. I mean, that's, and I don't use that term lightly, okay? They're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people from there, okay? And honestly, they have a mandate to go seek justice and revenge. They do. This idea that they need to have a truce or a peace treaty, that's morally crap after you see women and children be burned alive and dragged to the streets.
Berani menyebut Israel sedang melakukan ethnic cleansing hanya karena sekali mendengar dakwah Eddie. Itu jelas bukan hal remeh. Tapi kalau Anda belum pernah dengar Scofield Reference Bible, disitulah kuncinya. Buku ini bukan Alkitab baru, melainkan tafsir penuh catatan kaki, nyeleneh karya Cyrus Ingerson Scofield tahun 1909.
Christian Zionism. How are so many Christians tricked into this, especially since Zionists openly hate Christians? It all started in 1909 with the publication of the Scofield Reference Bible, a Rothschild Zionist-funded reinterpretation of the Bible to help Zionists create the state of Israel with the tricked support from the Christians. They paid somebody to reinterpret the words of the Bible to American Christians. The tricks are in the footnote interpretations of the scripture, and sometimes there was more footnotes than actual scripture on the page. And here's an example of how intentionally far off the interpretations could be from the actual scripture. Listen.
The footnote reads, God made an unconditional promise of blessing through Abram's seed to the nation of Israel to inherit a specific territory forever. But the passage doesn't say anything like this. God orders Abram to go to a land that God will show him, using the first person familiar, thee, meaning Abram and no one but Abram. The passage does not say that God is giving any piece of land to anybody forever. It doesn't say anything about Israel. In fact, if we accept biblical history, we know that Abram had no children when this happened, and not for quite a while. So there was no person or nation named Israel when this promise was made. There was no state or nation named Israel. The man Israel did not even exist in Abram's imagination when God spoke to him.
All those tricks were to use Christians' own religion against them, all to help create the state of Israel and protect it in the future. Now listen to how they even tricked Christians into supporting the Jews with godly rewards and godly threats, putting words in God's mouth to trick people.
There is a promise of blessing upon the individuals and nations who bless Abram's descendants, and a curse lay upon those who persecute the Jew. The word Jew is used in the footnotes in describing an occurrence 2,000 to 3,000 years before the word Jew existed. In fact, Jew is taken from the name Judah, who was, it is told, one of the 12 grandsons of Abraham, Abram of Genesis 12. Neither Judah nor Jew existed, and this footnote is a false concoction.
That is messed up. They mass-produced this book by Oxford University Press, taught it to pastors who went and taught it to other pastors who preached it to Christians. And the propaganda became self-perpetuating without the Christians even knowing that they're actually spreading false political propaganda. From this very clever manipulative trick, does Christian Zionism even exist? And sadly still influences domestic and foreign policy to this day.
My sense was the Scofield stuff, which has had massive implications for our foreign policy, for example, and on our domestic politics, was probably a lie. I do know that that translation or that commentary on the Bible has had massive effects on our politics that have been very, very negative and resulted in the deaths of a lot of people.
It's a trick. Zionists are our enemy. They hate Christians and use us for donations, political support, and even our soldiers. Help expose and stop this propaganda.
Bagi orang sekritis Charlie Kirk, wajar bila ia akhirnya merasa ditipu oleh kenyataan pahit dalam kitab tafsir Scofield itu. Catatan kaki yang dulu ia anggap kebenaran, ternyata hanya racikan tafsir manusia biasa, penuh bias politik dan ambisi pribadi. Sayangnya, meski sempat goyah dan mulai meragukan Israel, Charlie perlahan kembali pada kebiasaan lamanya, menyerang Islam. Seakan ada tarik-menarik abadi antara cahaya hidayah yang sempat singgah dengan jerat ideologi lama yang terus membelenggunya.
We tried to set up the scheduling, but that meeting never materialized. Later, he told me that he couldn't make it due to him just having a baby. After I found this out, I congratulated Charlie. After some time, I noticed some of his public statements continued in that negative direction like before, spreading misinformation, lies, and hate.
The spiritual battle is coming to the West. And the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combining with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. And the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low crime neighborhood, not to have my kid be taught the lesbian, gay garbage in their school, while also not having them have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important. We want the American way of life, and it's time that the church stands and rises up against it.
Yep. And I responded to him always academically, always respectfully. We also discussed meeting in Tampa to continue the dialogue in person. So I started to engage with him again after a little time out. And I genuinely believe that meeting face to face with Charlie could have been very positive and produce positive results. Because he had been around people who were just feeding him hate. And he had truly never really got together, sat down and connected, broke bread with a Muslim. And this would allow him to build a deeper and proper understanding of Islam. From my conversation with Charlie, I learned something crucial. He was taught to hate Islam. His environment and friendships shaped much of his understanding. And he admitted to having no true knowledge about Islam.
Kesempatan mengenal Islam sudah ia terima, tapi hidayah bukan sekadar singgah di telinga. Ia harus berani menetap di hati. Charlie Kirk justru makin menjadi, menampakkan Islamofobianya. Pada 9 September, ia kembali menulis serangan. Islam adalah pedang yang digunakan kaum kiri untuk menggorok leher Amerika. Kata-katanya meluncur, seolah azab yang hendak ia timpakan kepada Islam, tapi azab itu justru berbalik arah, pulang tepat ke alamat sang pengirim.
Great.
Dari sini kita belajar bahwa lidah adalah amanah. Ia bisa jadi kunci kemuliaan atau justru sekop yang menggali liang kubur sendiri. Kesempatan mengenal Islam bisa datang kapan saja, tapi tak semua hati sanggup menampung cahaya itu. Ada yang menjadikannya pelita, ada pula yang menolaknya hingga terseret dalam pekat. Dan kini Charlie Kirk mungkin baru benar-benar menyaksikan kebenaran Islam. Sayangnya, di alam kubur tak ada tangga untuk kembali pulang.